It's Larry the GM, and I have Clint on the phone with me. Clint is so dedicated to you guys that he's jumping in. He really has other things going on, but that's how dedicated we are to this whole thing. Oh, Clint, why can't I get this? Hang on, I got to get my slide up. There we
Yeah,
go,
it's
slides up.
there. It's just just a
There
little
we go.
small. There it is. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm going to stay in slideshow. Can I do that? I don't know. I don't know how this will work. If I do that, I won't see technical difficulties, folks. I am going to stay in that mode because if I can't see the chat if I do that.
Yeah,
And
I can
I
see
hang
the
on,
chat
guys.
for you. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how it works. All right, guys. Let's. I'll go slide mode while Clint's with us. And then when he's gone, I will get off of slide mode. All right, guys. What we're gonna do? We're gonna go through our post trade deadline recap. This is Larry the GM and Clint the Scout. Welcome to our Astros weekly recap. As I was saying, Clint's available for a short period of time with us, and then we will. Then you'll be flying solo with me. What we're gonna do tonight? First, before we get started, please like our YouTube, like the video that we're showing on here on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. You got the two links right there for Clint and my our handles on Twitter and also our links to our YouTube channels. Please follow us on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. I'm sorry, subscribe to us on YouTube and like the video and then follow us on Twitter. And while you're doing all that, then jump on the Larry the GM website. A lot of the stuff we're going to go over tonight is content that we have covered, we have on the site. And I think you guys will see it. All right, let's go. Let's go to today's agenda. We're gonna do a weekly recap. We're gonna give you our update of the trade deadline. I'll give you the good and the bad of the Kikuchi deal. I'll give you a recap of what I said related to a high level recap of what I said about fixing Caleb Ferguson. We will talk about. I mean, we won't celebrate, but we will talk about the fact that Montero is DFA'd, and we'll talk about a little bit of big picture related to that. We'll talk about what happens to the roster now, and then we'll end it up with time for you to hammer me with thoughts and questions and what we think. So we'll look at that. All right. So Clint, anything you want to say? I mean, I just ran through the agenda and welcome. Anything you want to say to the folks before we get started?
no, I guess big thing is anybody who gets a chance to go out to Waterburger Field and watch the Hooks play before the end of the season definitely should do that. I missed out on an opportunity to watch Bryce Matthews. He was off that night, but that's a kid I definitely would go get some eyes on because I don't know how much longer he's going to be at Double A. He'll probably end up in Sugarland before long, and that might make a lot of Astros fans happy because he'll be a lot closer to y'all. But also just kudos Waterburger Field. I went to school down there and stuff like that, and it's always a beautiful track. And then, uh, you know, everybody just go to the website. Obviously, number one, it all starts from there. Our handles are the same across every platform you can imagine. So if you're searching for us, looking to subscribe and like and share and get invested with us and following the Astros, please please look that up and share it with everyone you know. And let's get into it, Larry.
Yeah. So I would say, man, if there wasn't a time you understood the value of the Larry GM website, I hope you felt that in the trade deadline time because we have been covering it. Now I went to the Astros game on the 30th, the day of the trade deadline. And so I still owe you guys some more feedback on the other trades. I will get to that through this week. But we have been covering the trade deadline. So a lot of stuff has happened, and I'll talk through the stuff in the lower right of this because it's covered up I forgot about the covered up by the pitchers. But all right, the Astros took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. The Astros dropped 2 out of 3 against the Pirates. Once again, they beat the harder team and then they lose the series to the easier team. I don't know, guys. That's just that's what our Astros like to do. The Astros basically the record. They're still 4 games over 500. Their odds to make the postseason and Fangraphs was basically flat where it was a week ago. The trade deadline is complete, and the full grades are still coming for every deal. And I'll have some creative ways to look at that, and then we'll grade all the teams. Well, let's go through a bunch of the roster moves that happened. So there's things that happened with the trades. There's things that happened after the trades. So Bloss, Loperfido, Wagner, and Austin were all traded away. Kikuchi and Ferguson were traded for. Okay, so we lost 4. I don't know much about Austin, guys. I'll be real transparent with you. Dubin was optioned, and then the day after that, he was recalled because of all the trades. Ort was recalled earlier. Leon was recalled after all the Loperfido left. He took essentially Loperfido's spot on the roster. Tucker was transferred to 60-day IL so that there would be a 40-man spot. And then Montero was DFA'd, so there would be another 40-man spot. Martinez was optioned because he had thrown so many innings in the last couple days. And Lauer apparently just today, breaking news, has opted out of his MILB, his minor league deal, and he'll be a free agent and look for a major league job. So it's obviously a busy week. I gave you guys the Fangraphs, the projections there, so you guys can see it. But the Astros are still sitting pretty good spot in the AL. Clint, anything you want to highlight about the weekly recap? What about the week in the Astros?
Yeah. So my biggest thing is I don't want to. The Pirates do project as a weaker team compared to the Dodgers, but it's hard to sleep on how well that pitching staff has performed and
Yeah.
kind of developed this season. I mean, obviously Skeen's a stud, but we can't sleep on the other folks. And you know, I just, I mean, obviously I know this is an extra show, but give kudos to the Pittsburgh Pirates and what they're kind of doing over there, because that pitching staff looks like it could be very good in the next few years.
Yeah, I think the Pirates are a team that's going to be building. All right, let's talk about the trades. And I know everybody, you guys probably are saying, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about it anymore, Larry. Here's what I'm going to say. If you guys saw how I was setting up the trade grades, the Astros trade for Kikuchi but from a value standpoint, is an F deal. That I can't help. That's just what it is. They traded away 17.3 trade value from the baseball trade values website, and they got 4.9 back. That's what the trade website, the guys that make a living setting these trade values, and they on that website they've got trade values for everything. I need to evaluate, but that's a 353% overpay. I don't know if that's the worst of the overpays. I mean, obviously, like the other deal, the Astros have got a huge underpay, and the Yankees Yankees overpaid for it. But at the end of the day, in other words, the Yankees didn't get anything for trading against Caleb Ferguson. But I'm talking of all the significant deals, the deals with a significant war going back and forth. From a war standpoint, it's a 640% war overpay. That's because the Astros are trading many years of control, Bloss, Loperfido, and even Will Wagner for 2 months of Yasuo Kikuchi. So on this page, I'm just for right now, I'm just talking about the value proposition of these deals. The opposite end of the spectrum is if you put the Caleb Ferguson trade in for Kelly Austin. Kelly Austin wasn't even rated on the baseball trade values website. He doesn't project to have any sort of real war. So we basically got 0.1 war for the rest of Caleb Ferguson's year for a guy that was. I mean, when we went through it a couple weeks ago, Glenn, we talked about the guys that were just throw-ins.
Yep.
Kelly Austin would even be less than that because it wasn't even on the website as a player, right? So the Astros got 0.8 trade value for nothing. So Caleb Ferguson, and we'll get into the challenge of Caleb Ferguson in a minute. So, Clint, did you have anything you want to add to that?
And I don't know if this is a good spot for us to talk about those two trades, or if you want to talk about values and I guess kind of our perspectives on it, in another slide or later on. But I think on the surface, I don't want to say that I think the real sneaky part of this is a lot of disgust came for the Kikuchi trade, which it merited, some criticism. But I don't know if I really want to um, downplay how valuable Caleb Ferguson could be if things
Correct.
are done correctly. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So Larry and I came to very similar conclusions from two different perspectives, obviously. But I think there's upside, and we just need to be happy about that. And I still think there's upside for Kikuchi, and it looks like we're going to see him this weekend. I hope.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, let's get into that part. So the good and bad of the Kikuchi deal, right, is the bad is the Astros severely overpaid, as we just talked about, for a rental. The good is I think Kikuchi makes them a much better starting pitching staff, and not only in that he's relative to the other starters that they have, but he's also the ability to eat innings. So these tables came from my evaluations of that trade. That's in that Kikuchi deals raises questions article. Okay, so I give you the link. You can click on the link there. But if you compare Kikuchi and where his ERA and FIP are compared, we're potentially replacing Jake Bloss in the pitching rotation. Jake Bloss had a 6.74 ERA, and Kikuchi's got a 4.75, and Spencer Gage got a 5.58. So when Justin Verlander gets back, okay, we're having two guys that are been young and kind of struggling, but really look at the FIP side. Kikuchi has nearly the best FIP on this in this rotation as of right now, or as of when the trade happened, and he has the best FIP minus. And FIP minus is the FIP part corrected. So the Astros, relative to the schedule they've had, Framber Valdez's FIP minus is actually a little higher than Kikuchi. So we're getting we're getting a good value Kikuchi. Now, Brandon's right. I mean, it's kind of questionable. Like, why is he all of a sudden a better prospect? Well, maybe they looked at it. Maybe they understand a little bit more who Bloss is because they pay more attention. But at the end of the day, I don't really want to go down that road. I do not personally believe there's a uh, uh, conspiracy in the prospect community. You guys can believe that if you want to. The table below the year to date table, look at where Kikuchi rates relative to the rest of the staff and where he will be the rest of the year. He's easily slots in as either the second or the third pitcher on the staff. So guys, if you say, well, it's game number 3 in the postseason, I think Kikuchi's starting that game. I'm just so if we get what we need, um, he's starting the game. I've got to turn off the caption. Let me turn that off. All right, all right. So you can see it better. There's Kikuchi's numbers 3.90, 3.96 FIP. And ERA and FIP. So, guys, we're getting a good pitcher. It's a good pitcher. And over here, I'm showing you guys the xWOBA and the WOBA and xWOBAs. And really, all you can really just do here is look at the relative color, and you can see that Kikuchi frames in as the better as good as some of the best pitchers on the staff. Guys, Kikuchi is going to help this team for the rest of the year. I just think they paid way too high of a price for doing it. Clint, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I after really thinking about it and applying some of the some of my own thoughts to it, and really kind of reading about certain things, and also some of the fan feedback as well. I don't we won't know now what the value of this trade is, except for depending obviously on the season results. If we go out there and we make it to the LDS and we don't advance further than that, if we don't retain Kikuchi, all that, then it becomes an even more of a failing trade for the Astros. But also, it was something I mentioned to Larry a few weeks back. Is like, are we going to get in the world where we might be trading Joey Loperfido? And I don't know if that was not something we really wanted to
Right.
do because it didn't project that way. But then the Astros clearly have a different feel, have different feelings about Joey Loperfido and what they have in house with Jacob Milton and potentially Pedro Leon to make this deal. And the problem with Bloss is, and I think Larry and I would probably agree with the timeline that the Astros are on with the championship window, is where does Bloss fit into that? And after
Right.
the draft class that they had this year, very pitcher strong after Yannick, it was very telling that that's what they're looking to do. And maybe it was just it was just a culmination of this is the best thing I can do. But I also I don't want to ramble on, Larry. It's just I also looked at it as this is also Dana's second trade deadline as a general manager, and you're talking about somebody who a little bit less inexperienced, and Larry alludes to it in the article and talking about what is going on in that front office, because it just continues to kind of be a thorn in the side of how general managers have operated since Lunau was let go. It just becomes more and more of a question mark on what the decision making is and how things are being handled. But I also think Kikuchi has a lot of upside and has great stuff. And Baseball Perspective wrote a great article on it, and I need to share it. But they talk about how, man, of all the pitchers that were actually on the market in terms of trade, for trades here at this deadline, Kikuchi is one of the ones that was projected with some of the best stuff in terms of quality upside and A+ breaking stuff, and he still has a real mid to high mid 90s fastball coming out of the left hand, which is brilliant. And so maybe Dana and them got tunnel vision. Maybe they just got a little afraid and said we need to strike now before we either don't get something or we get bid out of someone else. And we'll never know, unfortunately, but it's just one of those things that I thought I wanted to really bring up and share with everybody.
Right. And what I'll also say is a lot of people are looking at the ERA and then they're just kind of like totally discounting Kikuchi. And you guys know that this is not the home of the ERA statistical basis, right? So that 3.64 is telling you something. And what it's kind of telling us is go down in this corner over here. This 351 BABIP versus right-handed hitters is that Kikuchi will not throw a 351 BABIP for the rest of the year,
No.
for an entire season. That's like 50 points higher than any good pitcher, decent pitcher throws for the BABIP guys. And what it's telling you, and it's showing up a little bit in the xwOBA spread, right? The xwOBA is telling you that Kikuchi is nearly average, right on average as far as versus righties, and a little worse than average versus lefties. Guys, that and Brandon says the Blue Jays have a terrible defense, right? So even and you say, well, we're talking about ERA. Well, yeah, but there's plays that don't get made that aren't necessarily errors as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see how well. I think there's a lot of upside to how well Kikuchi could pitch, and then people are going to be pulling my article out and be hammering me for saying this is a bad trade. I'm not saying it's a bad trade to get Kikuchi here. If literally we could have gotten Kikuchi here for a year and 2 months, I probably would be flipped and say, you know what, guys, the like Clint alluded to, the organization is telling us by their actions that they have other players that they think better of than Loperfido, and Jake Bloss may not be what they need a pitcher this year, and Jake Bloss just can't be that guy. He's not ready, and so and we have innings limits, bombs about to go off on some of these other pitchers. They need a pitcher they can count on getting 5 2/3 or six innings at a start like a Kikuchi can give them, and I think that's really where we're at. All right, let's go on, Clint, so we can
One
we
thing
can
I
get
will
your
say,
thoughts.
Larry, the thing
Yeah,
is there's a potential that we'll see a really different approach from the coaching staff and everything else with what he throws in terms of splits. Not splits, but pitch allocation. And I
pitch
think,
allocation.
I
Right,
think the changeup will become a bigger weapon for him. But I just think that giving him a little bit of a new scenery and a new vibe in life, I guess, would be a really nice thing. And we might get the very best out of him when we really need it.
right, and Clint, that's a real great transition because we're going to kind of go through that relative to Ferguson, right?
Yep.
We're and what Clint and I are telling you is we'll do similar sorts of analysis related to Kikuchi, and maybe we'll have one start in there. We can see if the Astros are implementing. But so, guys, I'm not going to try to go too deep into the details here, but we do have on the website fixing Caleb Ferguson, guys, and if you guys remember when the Astros help me, Clint, who did Will Smith, right? The Astros traded for Will Smith, and I was like, I was really mad. And then I spent time, and Clint and I we talked about it. And we're like, wait a minute, they can fix him. What they can fix him, Clint.
Yes.
And I wrote the fixing Will Smith article, and I told Clint as soon as this trade happens, Clint, I think there's another article here. It's the fixing Caleb Ferguson, and
Right.
I and that's what I wrote. And let me give you a couple highlights. Notice these numbers here. No, Caleb Ferguson had Tommy John surgery in 2020. And so with LA in 2022, he threw a lot of curveballs and they were really effective. And then in 23, it's still very effective with the Dodgers. Overall 303 XWOBA. But that's a good number. That's better than average in those years. Now you see him with the Yankees early this season, and his pitch mix his pitch data is a disaster. And you know what? That's not you guys aren't going to be able to see that chart. Let me see if I can get to there. I'll talk you through them. So the another plan. Here's the other plan. Here we go. Here we go. Hang on, guys. Give me 1 minute. We'll shift that. There we go. You'll be able to see it now. So what I did when I went through how the Astros can fix Caleb Ferguson from a pitch allocation standpoint, the same thing that Clint just referenced for where we may be going with Kikuchi too. And what this Ferguson is on this chart. These are the Astros ex-Wobas overall and versus lefties and versus righties. Okay. So, and yes, some of these players don't have a lot of plate appearances. So you can ignore like Caleb Ward if you want to when you consider this. And you'll come down here and you'll see Caleb Ferguson second worst only to the guy that just got DFA'd. And you should be going crazy. Like, wait a minute, Larry. His ex-woba is absolutely Larry. Ex-woba is your number, and you're telling me the guy we traded for is going to be the worst on the staff as far as ex-woba because we just DFA'd Rafael Montero, and it's over, right? Forget it. Oh, what are we doing? What? No wonder we gave them nothing, right? Well, guys, if you follow what I do in that article, I do not think they're going to keep. Really versus right-handers, there's a major improvement in the ex-Woba if they will just stop throwing his fastball, four-seam fastball, like 10 to 20% less, and they go back to the level of the cutter that he was using last year, and the right hand, and I'm not assuming any sort of better performance of these pitches. I'm saying the quality of the pitches as they exist today in 2024 if they just change the allocation a little bit. This is exactly what we did for Will Smith, and it's exactly what happened with Will Smith. And I know most Astros fans don't know it, but Will Smith was actually a very good pitcher for them in the last part of that season. He really was. But you can see the xWOBA goes from 317 on righties down to 269. You know what that is, guys? That's like the fourth best xWOBA versus righties, and this is a left-handed pitcher.
Yep.
Which is wild to me that his reverse splits. You make some maybe I would say a more radical change to what he does versus lefties. Full stop. I admit it. But if they just stop throwing the fastball, and guys, the Astros are one of the best teams about like, hey, that fastball is not working. We don't have to overuse it. We can go down this other route. They can improve his xWOBA versus lefties another 50 points. That makes him a 308 versus lefties, better than average, a 284 overall. Guys, that is the fourth most effective relief pitcher on this team. And that's exactly what they need is another relief pitcher they can count on being good. And that's including Caleb Ward. So call it the third best. Taylor Scott, Josh Hader, Caleb Ferguson. Better if they do the allocation and it works out like I said in table, and won't be exactly that, guys. But he's the third best on the staff. He's better than Abreu, better than Presley as far as xWOBA. Clint, why don't you take over and talk to me? I got to check something. My daughter may have messaged me.
For sure.
Okay, go ahead.
No, really, the point of it is, and it was kind of stuff that I really got into when I was watching him, and I know Larry's going to allude to it when we talk about it more. And so, if you're okay with it, Larry, I'll transition to what we kind of saw as things changing, and what we're looking at is his cutter is it's got to be his best pitch. I mean, the data supports it. Everything is kind of aligned that way. So number one is obviously we I guess here at Larry the GM we lean into strengths obviously, and it's kind of what the Astros have done for a long time with these pitchers. It's very to me this is very similar to what we kind of talked about with Josh Hader. Is like, well, why is he not throwing the slider anymore? What is so ineffective about it? And so we'll talk about it with Caleb Orton having that. He throws what is called a slurve now, but he threw a curveball before this. And so one of the beautiful things about it is we both agree that there's a need to go back to the curveball. There's a need to go and lean into that harder breaking stuff. But for me, it's not even so much the difference of it is he needs to create the downward tilt and get away from creating a pitch that slides horizontally, because as we know, a barrel travels horizontally through the strike zone. But if we can create more downward tilt, if we could create a way to get that ball on the bottom of barrels and stuff like that, we should see a lot of that WOBA data, and stuff like that really improve, and he should start to find some effectiveness. He's kind of curious because he is obviously kind of a reverse split guy, righties versus lefties. But we talk about, Larry and I talk about all the time, is where's the upside in certain folks. And I think what we see here is Caleb Ferguson brings a lot of upside in what we weren't seeing with anybody else, namely Rafael Montero. So it's just a huge benefit, and it's one of those trades that we may not be talking about much, but if they do fix him and things go well, he could become a really high leverage guy in those weird, in those 6th, 7th innings that they blend in with Brian Abreu and such to help alleviate some of the work that they have to take on night after night.
Yeah. So I guys, I know that it's like, okay, here we are. We're pumping up the minor deal that they did. And I think it's actually going to be a good situation. I mean, number one, guys, and we're about to talk about it. You look at the bottom of this table. Rafael Montero had no business still being here, and you can see my tweet storm about that. But guys, just the fact that Montero's gone, Ferguson's in, is going to be a plus. He's a lefty too, so that gives him some more flexibility on that front. Gives them, again, Clint, you're big about giving teams different looks, and I think that's another part of this deal. So let's talk about the Montero DFA, because Clint, we're almost at the end, and we I know you only wanted to be with us about 30 minutes, so The 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 Montero piece was like the third leg of the disastrous November into December 2022 transactions, and and Dana Brown has systematically cleaned up the second and third one this season on a way to trying to get this team back to being where it needs to be. And guys, Montero was signed on the November 12th for that 34 million, 11.5 million AAV. And since that, in those 2 seasons, 105 innings pitched. The one thing you say about Montero is he hasn't been hurt,
Yeah.
which kind of sucks. But he's 4.94 ERA, 5.16 FIP, negative point eight WAR, and that WAR out of 115 pitchers with more than 80 innings of relief pitch. Okay, 115 relief pitchers with more than 80 innings over the 2 seasons. It's 113th. Now, if you take that to 100, he's dead last. Okay, Montero was one of the worst relief pitchers in all of Major League Baseball over the last 2 years. Simple as that. And the frustration is Jose Abreu was 222 out of 223 of position players with more than 600 plate appearances. Those two deals were absolutely disastrous. And the Michael Brantley deal, which was a 1 year, 12 million, the Astros got 57 plate appearances for him, and for that $12 million. Those deals were over $100 million of financial commitment and nothing but negative response, negative, almost -3 WAR for that. And there was like some folks that are trying to say Montero this year he just became bad. Guys, I was on Twitter Spaces. I've been here telling you that Montero has been bad every month of the season. In April, yes, he had a 3.68 ERA, but he had a 5.27 FIP. He had a 179 BABIP, which meant he was extremely lucky and unsustainably lucky. In May, he had a 2 ERA. So, hey, man, Montero's doing great. Well, he had a 5.82 FIP, and he had a 240 BABIP, unsustainably low. In June, the luck finally ran out, and he had a 9.45 ERA and 8.26. He finally was his BABIP. He was unlucky in June, but it was just terrible. And in July, he had a 5.63 ERA, a 7.53 FIP, and a 143 BABIP, which means he was lucky to be that bad. Guys, Montero's been consistently bad, and Joe Espada has been showing us that he only use him when he has no choice, and basically like, well, the game's over either one way or the other. I can use Montero here.
Yep.
Or he literally had no other healthy arm to pitch.
And the fact of the matter is that's the type of guy that's making $11.5 million over every season, and I think that's really the message that has to come with it, guys. Is we'll talk about, well, it may not be that bad, but it's always the money tied to how bad it is, and you can't sit there and you can make the argument. I can make the argument and go all day about it, where it's like we can pay much less for much better, and I think we're going to see that with a guy like Caleb Ferguson. And it's unfortunate that Dana Brown, and I want to take Dana Brown's defense, has been forced into inheriting this, because this is a huge issue, and it's not going to just be it's going to linger for another year or so, if I'm not mistaken, Larry. That we're going to be dealing with this.
We got $30 million of payroll that we're still on the
yeah.
CBT calculation next year.
Yeah, so it's not going to be fun, but we at least have a GM that was able to get that righted and right that ship and kind of get us in a position where we have a little bit better arm to go in. And I think we see some of the other younger arms come up. I mean, Forrest Whitley's had a great past couple months, and if it's one thing I told Larry. I said, would you rather have Forrest Whitley or Rafael Montero pitching once a week, even if it's only 1 or 2 innings? It's like, give me Whitley, give us upside. And I
Yeah.
think that's I think this is more indicative of the Astros team that Dana Brown really has in mind.
Right. So here's the 40-man roster as of right now. The 40-man roster and the four guys, there's actually 44 players on this list. And four of them are on the 60-day IL. Now, I'm not 100% sure Lance McCullers is ever pitching again this year, right? Or we can even make it worse than that. But if you look at the roster now, if you look at the starting rotation, if you had everybody back, this is what I think the starting rotation would be. The 5-man rotation would be. If you had everybody back in the bullpen, or everybody, all the pitchers back, and you had Garcia and McCullers here, I don't think Garcia and McCullers are going to start. I mean, Garcia maybe, but you can see this is a really good bullpen
Yeah.
with Caleb Ferguson and in there. You now finally got a fourth option, and Taylor Scott's down here as the seventh member of this bullpen, and he's a B minus. Guys, there's not too many bullpens actually look that deep. And then you've got these players that are in the minors that are possibly coming. These players that are basically either on the MLB roster right now or are imminent to be joining, and 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 maybe Brian King goes back down to the minors, or gets guys. The players in blue on her are likely DFA candidates. Okay, and so that's where we head to with the pitching staff. You can see this is what the lineup looks like once we get Kyle Tucker back, guys. This is a very good lineup that has very few holes. You got everybody's a C plus player or better. These are projection grades, and you can say, well, Chas McCormick hasn't been that good. I'm telling you, the projection systems still say he's going to hit. Now, I'm not sure he's going to hit, but the realities are they can platoon him with some of the bats here. It's gonna be interesting to see what Leon. I think the fan base needs to show some patience with Pedro Leon, because the projection systems are warning you that he's going to be worse um, than Joey Loperfido and worse than Trey Cabbage. Here's the players that are in the minors and their grades. So this is where we're at from a 40-man roster, and it's going to be really interesting to watch that as these players in red come back who are on the 60-day, what therefore need to be added to the 40-man roster where they can even be brought into the lineup, how the team manages that. All right, Clint, any thoughts on that before you go?
No, I think I know, and I know Brian McTaggart posted some good news that Verlander and Garcia could be seeing rehab assignments. I don't know if that's maybe in a week or so. I think they're supposed to schedule to play both pitch one more bullpen each, and then make their way out there for rehab assignments. I believe that's the same thing with Penn Murphy, and we haven't even. One of the things that this does is, and I always reiterate it to folks, is this team has to be good. Obviously, when it matters, is obviously the number one thing, and we're treading water and we're working through it, and we're staying competitive. We're staying at the top of this division or within striking distance. If a lot of these guys turn around and get healthy late August and beginning September, I don't I don't see how there's a way that they can't continue to stay out in front of that division, win it, and then have momentum heading into the postseason. Um, I don't want people to give up on the fact that it's been a really rough season, but it's also been a very injury. I guess how would you say, a very injured season.
Right.
MVP candidate Kyle Tucker is injured. All of these starters are injured. Are the starters we really needed get injured? It just becomes this revolving door for the IL. And so, you know, kudos to this team for playing as well as they have, and and for continuing to be a good offense in light of losing somebody like Kyle Tucker. But there's upside and there's always potential with that. And I would say that Espada and Dana Brown and them are being very particular about when they're going to play Leon. They're going to be
Correct.
very selective of what he's going to see, because I guess there's also a world, and Larry may agree or may not, when Tucker comes back, he's probably not going to be on the roster.
I assume he's going back down.
Yeah. So he's really just filling in and being that extra body, and they'll find some spots, but it's not like
Well, either that or Miss Diaz is going back down, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. I think
or being DFA'd. So all right, Clint. Well, I know you got some activities to go to, so you go do that.
no, I
And guys,
appreciate
I will stay here and we'll do some Q&A time. Thanks, Clint.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe and do all that, and we'll be back soon.
All right. We will put the chat overlay in. You guys let me know. Miss Scott, let's talk about your comment. So agree on Leon. Definitely going to need some patience. Let me show that. I looked at his minor league stats really close the other day, and his BABIP really inflating. And Miss Scott, I've been saying this for a month or two. Like, this fan base has been demanding Leon show up. Guys, have you looked at his BABIP? Because it was like 378 or something like that. Guys, I know I talk a lot about BABIP, and you probably get tired of hearing it, but guys, it's a good indicator of, like, are these statistics that they're having right now sustainable, or are there warning signs? That's not gonna sustain. He's not gonna hit a 378 for an entire season at even a AAA, much less in the major league. So I just I hope that people are patient with Leon. What else? What else do we have to ask about, guys? What are our thoughts? What are you? I mean, guys, jump in. You heard our thoughts on the trades. What are you guys thinking about the trades? Could Wickham replace Diaz on the roster and become the platoon first baseman? All right. Well, I don't possibly, Brandon, but the challenge is I'm not sure how the Astros are going to manage the 40-man. I mean, so it's Penn Murphy. It's probably, of all those guys in dark red, the first one that's going to be envisioned to come back. Well, who leaves the 40-man roster when Penn Murphy comes in? Is it Dylan Coleman or Parker Mashinsky? What if the Astros? I mean, guys, Forrest Whitley's gone like a month without giving up an earned run. I don't know what you guys seen the tweets. So if Forrest Whitley is brought up, how are we going to manage that? Who goes off the active roster? But yeah, when Penn Murphy comes in, then I expect one of these guys in blue is probably going off the 40-man, but I'm not sure which one it would be right now. And then with I think Luis Garcia is coming back now. Justin Verlander's already on the 40-man, so it's just a matter of, like, well, he comes up, then somebody's probably one of these three is heading to the minors or getting options, right? So, but what happens? Which of the guys in blue then go get DFA'd again? And I'm not sure. But to say that they're going to add another, Brandon, I'm getting to answer your question. You're add another man to the position player to the 40-man when you've already got a stable of 5 guys on the 40-man roster that I'm not 100% sure that Whitcomb would even be grayed out as being an upgrade to those guys. So who would you take off the 40-man to bring up Whitcomb? And you're going to have to DFA him. This is part of the reason I thought the Astros were actually going to trade Cesar Salazar, and it didn't happen. So Miss Scott says she secretly wanted Kikuchi, and for a couple of years now, I just wish we would have him longer, and we did overpay for 2 months, but I'm excited nonetheless. Miss Scott, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I believe Kikuchi is going to help this team. I believe he's going to help. I'm just really unclear. I've been uncomfortable with the price we paid financially with several of the players, and really, uh, uh, think that they way overpaid. So, Brandon, I don't think there's. I mean, the Astros put Kennedy Corona on the 40-man. I mean, they could take him off. I know he's not having a great year in Double A, but they put him on the 40-man in November to help him avoid the Rule 5 draft. Boy, that tells. I mean, it follows the strategy. Brandon, pay attention to what they say, what they do, not what they say. I don't know. Do we think that Kennedy Corona is way down on their priority list in the outfield? Maybe, you can make the argument. A lot of the prospect services still think he is fairly highly rated. So I don't know. I know he's not having a great year. Other thoughts, questions, ideas. What are y'all's thoughts about Caleb Ferguson? Are Clint and Larry just spinning it way too positive, and you just want to you don't believe us? This is going to be one of those moments. I'm going to say, well, listen to me now, hear me later. I think Caleb Ferguson is really going to surprise, and we're going to be thinking about Caleb Ferguson like maybe like we're currently thinking about Taylor Scott, and that would be pretty cool to have a left-handed and a right-handed Taylor Scott in the bullpen behind the big three. I mean, that would take a lot of pressure off the big three in the bullpen. All right, guys, last call for comments or questions. It's a little shorter. Maybe we finally got a Astros weekly recap under an hour, which is kind of shocking that it's the trade deadline. I will tell you guys from a content standpoint, we will be getting grades on all the major deals. I may draw a line. Like I'm not gonna like normally I would think the Caleb Ferguson deal may not even qualify for normal grades if it wasn't the Astros getting it in. But we will grade the deals, and then we'll talk about winners and losers from a team standpoint based on the grades. We will be putting out content for the next series that kicks off tomorrow, and then we'll see how the Astros can do. I mean, we got the month of August. Let me do this. Let me bring over the month of August. I will share this because I was talking to my wife about this. This is a pretty interesting challenge in the schedule. Let me get that hide. All right. So let me go back to that. Okay, and let me take the chat overlay off so you guys can see it. All right, so there we go. Here's the schedule. Start off with the Rays. And the Rays, they traded several of the really good players, and so it'll be interesting to see what version of the Rays are really exists. Then we've got the Rangers, and oh no, what do we do? All right, we got the Rangers, and then we got the Red Sox on the road, Rangers on the road, Red Sox on the road. Rangers, I think, are going to be scuffling, and basically, I think that's the last series of the year with the Rangers guys. So if the Rangers are going to make a serious move in this division, they have to basically sweep the Astros. The Red Sox are, they're going for it again. We get Tampa again, and I'll be really curious what Tampa looks like in this series this weekend. Then we get the White Sox, arguably the worst team in baseball for the last several years. We get the Red Sox again, a team that's going for it. The schedule at the end of this month really ramps up. This will be probably the second hardest stretch of the schedule beyond the first part. Red Sox, Orioles, Phillies, Royals. Those 13 games, if the Astros can win 7 of those, it should be viewed as success. They're 6 are at home, 7 are on the road. If the Astros can win more than 7, really big success. If the Astros win 4 or 5, I'm not going to be pulling my hair out, like, because schedule gets easier September. That last stretch right there is a really tough stretch. So let's see how the month of August shapes out. But guys, thanks for joining. And like we said at the beginning, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like this video. Please come to the website, become a moneymaker and or premium member, help support the website. We'll be getting content out back to the regular content tomorrow. And then folks, please continue to share the message and join us here. So take care, guys. Have a good night, and